always advocate for when people think about AI is don't try and get it to do an entire thing all at once. Try and get it to greatly decrease the amount of time that a subtask takes. So in our case, audio. If you're writing a script, just getting off that blank page and turning things into paragraph form from a list. And I'm sure that that replicates out in really any other field, but that's what I've seen has been really successful, is just reminding people that AI is really good at greatly decreasing, like taking from like 100% of the amount of time to like 5%. Like if it takes 4 hours, it might take 8 minutes, right, to do something specifically. And I think that's really the thing we should be focusing on right now, while also investigating the big swings, because they will be here before we know it.
Welcome to the Culture of Writing podcast, where writers, editors, and content strategists from Salesforce talk about how we work together to improve our craft and make content better.
From my perspective, I'll start with the stuff that's probably been a well-trodden path for this team, which is when you're writing something using like Einstein. We've had some success. It just has to be, you have to be very specific about giving it what you want to write about, and then using the output as a first draft or as a place to start, or as you put it, getting off a blank page. But if you ask it to go out and get information, I think this is still not known by everybody. If you ask it to go out and get information that's not, information that's been sort of like, I'm just trying to think of a good example here. Like, if you ask it, what years did the Roman Empire exist, right? It can go out and find that information. But if you're asking about technology, which evolves really quickly, it's going to be so outdated that you may as well not ask it, because if you publish that, it's just going to be incorrect. And I think everybody has had that moment where they realize what they're reading is not just correct, but being presented to you as confidently accurate. And that's a problem, right? So I think it's just important to remind people that in our case, taking something, here's a list of things we want to go over, and then turning that into a diagram, into a script has been pretty successful. So that's the writing aspect of it. I think this is a team of writers. None of that should be new, but I think it's worth just kind of reiterating that that's the success. So where we're seeing the most success, if you ask me this in 6 months, it'll be a completely different answer. But right now, video is made up of two components, really, video and audio combined into, or like the visual part of it and then the audio. Visually, there has not been anything that's really been useful for our team, but I think that will change one day and very rapidly, and then it'll probably accelerate. But for right now, a lot of the stuff I've seen visually is kind of gimmicky. Like you can say like, hey, make me a such and such, and it'll make that, but it's very obviously AI generated. But that changes every day. By the time I'm done with the sentence, something new will have popped up. That's what we found, is that visually, nothing has really done much to really impress us. However, the other half of that, audio, has gone from, nothing with AI that I was aware of to, and I keep using this, so sorry if you've heard this from me, science fiction. The things that it can do. I've been in this career for almost 2 decades now, and I have a pretty good sense of what we can do using traditional tools, and traditional tools then got digitized. And, it's this, in a lot of ways, production's the same thing as it was on The Wizard of Oz, like 80 years ago. But with AI, I really don't know how it does X, Y, and Z. It just does it. And you're like, okay, cool. Now I have this. And so with audio, we take one really expensive thing is changing like one line inside of a video. And that traditionally has been like 5 to 8 hours of work to fix that, because you have to re-record the audio. It's impossible to get audio to match if it's from a few months ago or even really yesterday. So by using some of these tools, we can get it to replicate your voice in a very specific recording, and then you can make changes to it, which is awesome. In about a few months, I would say, again, like ask me in 6 months, we'll probably not even be recording audio anymore. We'll be using text to voice, because that's getting so much better so rapidly. And that's going to save a ton of time. And I feel like there was something else we did. Oh, we started doing translations, which is really neat. Like we did a pilot. I wouldn't even say it a pilot, an exploratory demo with localization. And it's not there, but it's really amazing what you can do really rapidly. So again, ask me next year or in 6 months, like we could be localizing videos with minimal effort. But right now, concentrating on audio, which is really time consuming, is awesome. I'm always trying to come up with metaphors to explain life because I think it's really helpful. And do you remember the Concorde, the airplane that can fly from New York to London in 3 hours? So that can go twice the speed of sound. Whereas obviously most airplanes, well, all consumer planes are subsonic, right? Um, so that's one way to get to London faster is to cut the flight time. But I was thinking, that's big, that's bold, that is something you want to brag about. But imagine if you just had a traditional airplane, but the airport experiences on either end were faster, right? Imagine if you could just walk onto a tarmac and get on an airplane and it took off, and then it flew at subsonic speeds. You would end up getting to London as fast as if you'd gone to a traditional airport and then flown twice the speed of sound. So the net effect is the same. So I'm not saying that we should skip security lines in airports. All I'm saying is that imagine if we concentrated on making that go faster rather than focusing on the really expensive part of inventing new ways of flying. The net effect would be you would get to London faster from New York. And it's the same thing with video right now, where it's, obviously we want to make big, audacious things with, visually. But by concentrating on audio, which is very time consuming, it's kind of just under the radar for most people. But on our end, it's like, wow, production just sped up significantly. And a lot of this is just about time and money saving, right? So that's huge. And I just kind of like always advocate for when people think about AI is don't try and get it to do an entire thing all at once. Try and get it to greatly decrease the amount of time that a subtask takes. So in our case, audio. If you're writing a script, just getting off that blank page and turning things into paragraph form from a list. And I'm sure that replicates out in really any other field, but that's what I've seen has been really successful is just reminding people that AI is really good at greatly decreasing, like taking from like 100% of the amount of time to like 5%. Like if it takes 4 hours, it might take 8 minutes, right, to do something specifically. And I think that's really the thing we should be focusing on right now, while also investigating the big swings because they will be here before we know it.
Say I'm a writer, I do have a question. Describe to me how, just in specific, or you can make up an example, or if you have a real world example of that, I would kind of get the first draft of a video script. Just a scenario. Maybe there's a couple of scenarios that you can see or that you've experienced. So I'm charged with writing a video script, which I've not done before, based on X. So describe how that would work, because I don't know anything about AI. Let's just pretend that.
Oh, sure. So at Salesforce, the videos, for better or worse, are kind of a nice to have. Like we need to have written documentation for everything. And then embedded in that or on top of that, like a nice icing or a cherry on top of that is video. So in our case, for the writer's case here at Salesforce, the benefit is that you probably almost always have written content that you can tap into and then use AI to generate that into a script. So where you would get this information is, I mean, I'm not a tech writer, so I can only really make educated, understanding of this. But if you have, you're going to have written content on a feature, so you could take that and say, hey, generative AI, take this, turn it into a conversational 350-word script, and it does a really good job of making that leap. And then to get it into Salesforce, voice and tone, making sure it's accurate, cutting things here and there, that comes back to the writer. But that little piece right there could be really time consuming. And it can also, as you know, we're humans. It can also just be that blank page syndrome where you just have the title and a flashing cursor and you're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what the first word of this is. But when you see something that's like 2/3 ready for publication, you're like, oh, okay, well, this I hate, this I like, this I'll keep, this I'll adjust, and so on until eventually you have, something you can publish. And it really cut that middle part out. But then it's back in your words again. So it really benefits having that human in the loop. It's just a tool for the middle. Did that answer your question?
Yes, yes, it did. And because the only thing I was wanted you to do was kind of just elaborate, kind of take people through steps. Because I think with the people participating in this little off the grid pilot that we're doing, the people that are participating are even the ones who are skeptical are finding, okay, it's not magic. It's like you say, find the steps that it can help with. It can't do the whole thing. And I love metaphor and I love stories. And I thought the Concord example was brilliant.
Oh, good. Yeah. I don't know. It just came to me one day because, yeah, I mean, imagine if an airplane picked you up at your house, right?
Right.
Like, that doesn't exist, right? But I mean, like, imagine a helicopter, right? If you wanted to take a short flight from Dallas to Houston, right? And you could go 200 miles an hour in a helicopter, or you can go 500 miles an hour in an airplane. But if the helicopter picked you up, it'd probably get you there faster.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that that's just kind of, find those places where you can make big leaps today. And again, it'll have like the same net effect. I mean, with AI, you are still, I mean, it's only as destructive as you allow it to be. Like, I don't know, it's not destructive, but like we're at least 5 years from AI being destructive, right? But I think it's not like it's going to publish if you ask it a question. So you ask it, if you give it ideas and then you take it in, you can do whatever you want with that information, including nothing, right? So one thing, I know this isn't magic, but one thing that I've really been shocked every time I've used it is it can do a really good job of generating a why in a script. And what I mean by that is you wouldn't expect it. Like the computer, it can't really think about what it, I don't know, maybe it can. It seems like it would be impossible for it to understand what it doesn't know. But what I've seen with scripts is if you ask it, say why someone would want to watch this or want to know about this, it does a really good job of saying, hey, we're going to go over this and you'll want to know about this in case you run into this situation. And it can pick that up from just the context you gave it. And I don't understand how that's possible. So like, that's another thing to be aware of, is that if you ask it, why would someone care about this? It can give you a pretty, I mean, I can't say it'll be 100% of the time, but I've been really impressed when you say like, why does someone want to know about how to use this feature? And it'll say, it'll like pick it up from that context. Like if you are trying to do this, you're going to want to know these steps. And it kind of makes some logical jumps. And again, you have to use the SME to make sure that those logical jumps make sense. But I've been very impressed with that. And it's like kind of wild because it's not just rewriting steps. It's like actually interpreting the information, which is like wild, like you see those like next level things. And I guess maybe that's why you should use GPT-4 inside of Einstein. I don't know the differences, but maybe that's the kind of stuff that's getting better. It's not just better writing, but like better understanding. I'm just speculating. I don't follow these things, but that was something that really shocked me because like once you get over the initial shock of it can write, you're like, well, okay, but it doesn't really understand. And now it's like, well, actually, if you can explain why, that's a pretty deep understanding, right? I'm not a computer scientist, so I don't understand these things, but like it surprised me.
I would say this to your observation, which I think is spot on, is that my mentor and editor in my previous job, her most often written comment on technical documentation was, why should I care? And the editors here, it's one of the most fundamental aspects of writing that editors look for. So yeah, so what you're talking about is kind of universal to technical. It's universal for a lot of things, but certainly to technical documentation.
Again, like once we got over the shock of it being able to do the what and how in writing, I just never thought we would see the why, that it could generate that. But it does a really, again, only in my experiences, does a really good job of generating a why, which again means that it can understand what the viewer doesn't know. And I think that's really impressive. It's just like nice to sort of like actually think about these things for a second. Cause like, you're like, oh, wow, it did a good job with that. And you kind of move on. But then like you and I just sitting here talking about it, you're like, actually, if it can answer all the questions, like that's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. And the distilling out of the why, I mean, I don't understand. I'm not a computer scientist either. And Greg Bennett, like a lot of people that are more plugged into it, continuous, reminds you over and over, this is just a word calculator. It's just calculating. But it's doing some pretty deep calculating and some pretty meaningful calculating as it's doing it. So you can't just say it's just a calculator predicting the next word. It's doing a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like we need to stop using that metaphor, because like then you're limiting what you'll ask it, right? If you just put on autopilot and expect it to be successful all the way through, you're going to have a bad time. But like, you should periodically interrogate, like, how far can it take you? And like, it might be farther than you expect if you're not limiting it to just, because like the way I described it, give it 30 bullet points and it'll make you a 1-page script, right? Not 30, but 10 bullet points or so, right? That does sound like a word calculator, right? It's just multiplying words into more words. But again, this is like taking a pretty deep understanding, and I think that's really amazing. But I should say deep understanding in quotes, because I don't actually understand what's going on here, and I don't want to give it too much credit. I'm just saying that it is more amazing than its initial, once like the initial like shock has worn off, it actually has some surprises left in it,
Well, and I thought you made a really good point too, which I think bears repeating, is that there's no cost to asking it to refine answers or asking it different questions, right? You can just iterating, and it's really fast. You can iterate and refine, and it does take a lot of detours, and it goes in a lot of wrong directions, but you have to be willing to hone, right? Be willing to engage with it, to find the places where it can save you time. You made another good point. There's places where it can't, where it's not so great.
If you want one more metaphor, in my generation, I grew up with Nintendo, right? And then we had Super Nintendo, and then PlayStation, and so on. Now we have, the games we have now. A generation above me had Atari and Pong. And usually like every generation looks back to the previous one and says, I don't know how you thought that was cool or amazing, or how this was shocking to you, because I couldn't even spend a minute playing this, right? That's how technology usually goes, right? It goes like there's generational things. Hand a kid an iPhone 2 right now, and like they won't be impressed at all. But I think what we're seeing is take from Atari to Xbox, whatever the newest Xbox is, and instead of 50 years, it's in 9 months, right? And I think that's the part that's like we're all kind of coming to terms with, is that we're used to technology accelerating, but this is just such a vertical line. And if you use like gaming as like a perfect analogy of like, technology as a whole, like you can see how it improved. Like look at Flight Simulator, a thing I'm a real fan of. 1981, the first one came out. 2020, a new one came out. Like you can see the evolution of gaming right there, and which is a proxy for the evolution of computing power. And again, we're used to seeing this over the course of 40-ish years in that case. But imagine if it went from that to that again in a year. And I think that's what we're grappling with. We're like, oh, this is amazing. And then like, let's talk with localization about, can we translate audio, right? Can we translate audio from one language to another? A few years ago, it was amazing. You could translate text into French, right? Now you can do text into, English text into French language. That was so amazing on a Thursday. Friday, I found a tool, our friend found a tool that I used, and you've seen this demo probably, that doesn't just translate the audio, it translates your mouth. So now I'm speaking French in that video. And like that happened, obviously it didn't happen in reality for this time, but the way I experienced it, I was like, I just found out that I can translate text into a different language audio. But now 24 hours later, I found out I can translate video with me speaking English into French, right? And it's just, that was like, I was asking the wrong question. It was like, can I translate audio? And the right answer was, can I translate everything, like including me speaking it, like in a convincing way. And again, there's always these things where you're like, what's gonna wrap up like something from the 1940s and the iPhone? It's like, oh, all this technology was basically the same, right? And then 200 years from now, it's like now it's like this, which makes all those things look the same from a distance, even though from our experience they couldn't be more different, right? And again, we're seeing that not happen over the course of 100 years or a lifetime. We're seeing it happen, since the midterms last year, right? It's like it happens really quick. And we're all grappling with that, and it's changing the world and the economy. So we want to make sure we stay ahead of that, as both a company and as individuals. But I think that the video gaming thing is like a really good proxy for like understanding technology, because you can see it. And again, imagine if video games went from a little line with a dot to whatever kids are playing these days, right? Over the course of months.
The localization that you did, it duplicated your voice. You're saying?
Have you not seen this?
It's not.
Hold on to your hat if you haven't seen this yet. So again, I think I set the stage here well, but just to reiterate, text to text, like English to French, amazing. 2 weeks ago, English text to French voice blew me away. All I can say is just watch. Let me find this. Hey, everybody. A colleague named Jose Rodriguez just found this amazing tool called HeyGen. And allegedly, it will take what you're saying, translate it into different languages, use 11 labs in the back end to take that text and turn it into voice. And then the most amazing part is it will resync your lips to the new voice track. So let's see how it did. Salut tout le monde. Un collègue nommé José Rodriguez vient de trouver cet outil incroyable appelé Hagen, et prétendument il traduira votre texte dans différentes langues en utilisant 11 laboratoires en arrière-plan pour le convertir en voix. La partie la plus incroyable, c'est qu'elle va resynchroniser vos lèvres avec la nouvelle piste vocale. Voyons comment cela s'est passé. Collega di nome José Rodriguez ha trovato uno strumento incredibile chiamato Hagen. Prenderà ciò che stai dicendo, lo tradurrà in diverse lingue, userà 11 Labs per trasformarlo in voce. E poi la parte più incredibile è che sincronizzerà di nuovo le tue labbra alla nuova traccia vocale. Quindi vediamo come ha fatto. Did I sufficiently preface that?
Oh my God.
Yeah. You're like, wait.
How does it do your mouth?
I don't know. Like what I've been telling people is I feel like I have, video, the film industry, it's taking so long to get to where it is that like, I feel like I have like a decent understanding, like not that I can do these things, but a decent understanding of how things are done. This, no idea. I have no idea how this is possible.
Oh my God. Can you unshare so we can see more of you? That is unbelievable. No wonder everybody's going on strike in Hollywood.
and for good reason. Like the writers went on strike for reasons that are very easy to understand, right? But then you're like, okay, but what do you mean replicating people? And there it is. Like that was something that I did for free over the course of a weekend. And imagine if you had real resources going towards something. And again, this is a new tool. I think that we've gotten to the point where you can't trust a recorded video. I think that we've probably crossed that line.
Several of my favorite podcasters have said that there are AI-generated fakes going out, having them say things in their voice that they never...
Yeah. I mean, this is bigger than this conversation, but we have an election next year, and I think it's going to be a huge problem. And it's not the genie's out of the bottle, right? We can't unmake tools, right? So this will get more impressive and more problematic very quickly. I remember I did the first AI anything. I was like, make me a cat playing drums, and it made this like kind of bad 2D image of that. But I was like, that was incredible, right? That was December, and it's not even December of the following year, and this is what's possible. like things aren't supposed to move this fast. We're not ready for this as a species.
Yeah, it does make it is a bit unsettling. I mean, just to be blunt,
Yeah.
but that's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, you can see some of it, like, and I've seen other people do tests that weren't as impressive. And that's not a comment on me. I think that the lack of movement, the directly into the camera, the sort of like the amount of frame I took up, which was like little, I think it benefited it. So that didn't have to do much. So that really sells it a lot more. Also, I think the Italian, I don't speak either of those languages, but I think the Italian was a little bit more robotic. So like, I think it was a particularly good test. Again, not for anything of my doing. I think it just was, in general, just a lucky break on a lot of things. But yeah, I'm guessing if you give it it had a minimum amount of video you had to give it. I think it was 30 seconds. So I'm guessing that it looks for enough mouth movements to sort of like, here's all the different things that you would probably make with your mouth, and then just sort of animate the keyframes and everything in between. And then, you can change direction. That's existed for a while, where you can like map something onto a moving object and it'll warp and rotate and things like that. That's existed. So it probably animates your mouth, puts it on something, figures out which direction your mouth is pointed at that point. And again, like if there was a moving shadow across it, if I was moving a lot more, if I was moving my head, like I think it would probably fall apart. But again, very static, evenly lit, low energy kind of video. I think that helped a lot.
Well, yes, but it's incredibly impressive. Even in spite of everything you say.
Again, we have to be pragmatic about everything we do. Whenever I kind of get like the sense of like, can I cut corners, or other people seem to think like we can cut corners. We are a $250 billion company. We can't do things half-baked, So we can't put out something that is in French and it keeps going between Parisian and Quebec French, right? Because it's a bad look, right? It's done, check, we translated it, but like, it's not a good experience. And I don't want to be the one to pull down the company brand by doing something like that,
That makes total sense. That makes total
$250 billion. I mean, like we added 2% in our stock today. That was a lot of billions of dollars, like we're a big company and we have to act like it,
Very well put. No, but we're getting closer, and we're a hell of a lot closer than I imagined before seeing your example. Like it's moving fast, as you keep saying. Yeah, no, I'm saying I can't thank you enough, because I said, oh, you were generous. 45 minutes is very generous, and I sincerely appreciate it. It's going to help a lot of people.
I'm trying to make a generous generative AI pun. Like, I'm happy that you were so generous AI with your time. Can you cut this? No, it's not good. I'm trying to find it, but there's no pun there. It just doesn't exist. It's early.
Well, I appreciate the effort. So I've no doubt you could go to ChatGPT and come up with something. So
I'll catch you later.
No, Charles, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's always fun talking to you anyway. So I get two benefits. So thank
Likewise.
you. All right. Take care.
Thanks, Dan.